This video, Professionals and Coffee, we talk about media relations and strategic communications with Fabrice de Dongo, Media Relations Manager at the National Police Federation. Welcome to Professionals and Coffee, Fabrice.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, first of all, I'm going to start with the first question. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'm curious about how you started your professional journey in the world of communications.
Sure. I now live and work in Toronto. But I'm originally from Montreal, where I was born and raised, and where I went to school and started my working career, if you will. I studied political science, and as part of my studies, I happened to be interested in working in politics, and so I worked as a volunteer back when I was maybe 18 years old or something like that, on my very first political campaign, the campaign of a gentleman who eventually became the Prime Minister of Canada, Paul Martin. And that was in Montreal in 1993. And I say this because working in a political campaign, everybody does everything, right? There's people with their specialties, but when you're new to politics, you're sent out to put up signs or knock on doors. And I was fascinated by the interaction at the door with people to help explain ideas or canvass their support. And I was fascinated by the approach of interacting with people on ideas. And that not only kept me coming back to different campaigns in the area, provincially and federally, but it, despite my actual first job out of school, which was working as an accounting and documentation clerk for a food import-export trading house, I never lost that bug for working in politics, and I eventually got to work in politics. And as part of that role of being the youth director for the Liberal Party of Canada in Quebec, one of my tasks was also to work on communications. Now, by that, I don't mean communications was my full-time job, but I got my first real taste of continuous communications. Anyhow, I aged out of the Young Liberals of Canada, if you will, and that brought me to Ottawa to work for Senator Céline Hervieux-Payette in her capacity as a senator from Quebec. And I got a chance then to work on a lot more formal communications, understanding briefs and briefing the senator on various files, but also political communications. And that really got my taste, and my very first official communications job, if you will, I came after that, which was at the Bank of Canada. And I was one of the few people on the communications team. And my task was to write public correspondence about monetary policy for the governor of the Bank of Canada. At the time, it was David Dodge. Interestingly, I had no economics background. So it was a bit of a daunting challenge. I was hired because obviously my writing was strong. And they definitely needed someone to clear that incredible backlog of letters that had piled up. And so it was a really neat experience. And so, for the first 2 years, I was with the senator, and the next two and a bit years, I worked at the Bank of Canada. But, after 4 years, I thought, I was at a time in my life when I thought I wanted some change. And then that's when I came to Toronto. And so I accepted an offer to come do the public relations for a company called ING Direct, if you happen to know them. Save your money. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But that was my very first actual bona fide PR job, though I'd helped out at the Bank of Canada before. And then progressively over that time, I've worked at companies like Deloitte and HSBC Bank Canada, where I spent a good 6 years, and where at the time I saw that was also the time when I was there that I became a father as well. But HSBC was a great time. I also then worked for the ministers of finance, the Ontario ministers of finance, and then and separately and international trade. And in late 2018, I joined the communications crew at Aviva Canada, where I was head of external comms for a little while. And most recently, for the last two and a bit years, I've been with the National Police Federation as the media relations manager, so leading their media relations team there. So that's a little bit of my background, and what got me involved, like I said, was really just understanding pretty early on just the power of communicating and interacting with the public, and not just the power of it, but the fact that I liked it.
Yeah, that sounds great. So now you mentioned that you are the media relations manager at the National Police Federation. What are some of your duties as media relations manager?
Sure. Well, the media relations manager for us is a central person on the comms team. We're about 8 people strong, and basically, I'm responsible for all of the proactive and reactive media relations activities on a national and regional and local scale on all the issues that our organization prioritizes. So I'm, more technically, I'm responsible for building media relations plans and programs, relationships with reporters across the country who cover the issues of the RCMP. And the National Police Federation is the labor union that represents 20,000 members of the RCMP across Canada and internationally, up to the rank of inspector. So that's when they become executives, if you will, the management, if you will. So I represent the members of the RCMP, or my organization does, I should say. So also, and also technically, my role is to manage the flow essentially between the media and the NPF, to make sure that they have our latest messaging, that we have the appropriate spokespersons on topics, and that they're prepared to speak to various issues. And also, all of the tactics that we do across the year, a lot of it is more reactive just because of the nature of the work itself. But there's some great proactive stuff coming out of there too. So it's quite an interesting thing.
What do the media relations or communications teams usually look like when you work with the National Police Federation?
I think your question is, what does the team look like?
Okay.
Yeah. So we're a fully remote team. We're a mix of bilingual speakers and unilingual English speakers. We are aged young and old. We have folks literally from across the country, from BC all the way to Quebec. We don't have anybody in the Maritimes yet, but we're a small team of 8 people. So half of us work out west, and half of us work in central Canada, or Ontario and Quebec. And in terms of the tasks, like, we do everything from member communications to internal communications for our own organization. We do obviously the media relations, we do advertising, marketing support, social media interaction, a lot of that stuff. So a very healthy, broad communications mandate.
Could you please tell us more about your experience in people management? Are there any tips or strategies that you have implemented while leading or mentoring a team of communication professionals?
Yeah, so I've been managing people for about, since about 6, 7, 8 years, around there. And I think probably the one thing that the resounding lesson I've learned is that, everybody's different and everybody has different needs. And I think it's important to bend and flex to people as necessary. But it's important when you have an organization where things are defined, that you drive towards the overall objective. Because especially in communications work, I think if it's not part of, if the work that you're doing doesn't match the strategy of the overall organization, chances are you probably shouldn't be doing it. And so, as a people leader, I want to make sure that the people that I lead are enabled to do their best work, that they're recognized for doing their best work, and that I'm there to help them as much as I can in helping them to achieve that.
What's the difference between good and great strategy communications?
I've been thinking about that question for a while now, because I tried to define it. I've probably produced both over the course of my career, and I think I'll probably answer it from that perspective and from what I've seen other places do. I think good communications is, stuff that you may notice that gets the job done. But I think great communications, to me, is reaching people on a specific topic and affecting noticeable change. I think, to me, that's when you separate the, hey, I just said this and nobody remembers or nobody pays attention, to, hey, I just taught you something new. And with that information, you go on to do something even better with it.
How important are strategic communications to growing a company's success, both externally and internally?
Oh my goodness. So if I had to say on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know anybody worth their salt that wouldn't say 12. It's the foundation. I mean, like when you're building a company from scratch, the product has to work, right? The product needs to fill a need somewhere, right? But when you're advertising, when you're marketing it, when you're talking to people about it, when you want to get people to buy more, then you need to find ways to communicate the importance of your product and why people should get it, whatever the product may be. It could be like a physical object, like a pen, or it could be like a coffee, speaking of which, or it could be an idea, right? It's all about selling. And when you're selling stuff externally, the conversation is very much about, the benefit to other people, and here's what we're doing, and here's how it can improve your life and all that. When it's the internal side, it's equally important. Because you want the people who work alongside you and the people that you care about the most, the benefit of the product or products that you're trying to sell. Doesn't mean they have to know all the technical details, but if you understand the mission, if you understand the broad direction of what you want to do, then it's much more easier that way to align.
In this post-pandemic era, have you noticed any changes in the media environment as a strategic communicator at the National Police Federation?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say, I think consumers of news are becoming much more targeted in what they want to read. They're becoming much more fixed in their ideas about what they believe. And I think they're looking for news that fits their view. This is not everybody, but this is many people. Newspapers' revenue models are becoming more and more difficult to manage traditionally. In other words, print is not the same as it was, and now everybody's basically going online. And reporters' jobs and careers are unfortunately seeing sooner ends than I think they would have liked or preferred to see, which is really too bad.
From all the communications activities that you have taken part in, such as external, internal communications, brand communications, etc., please tell us the one that you enjoy most and why.
I love the work that I do now. I have always loved interacting with people. I've always loved, and I still get it, that adrenaline feeling of work, picking up the phone and it's a reporter and they're on a rush, they need something quick. I just love that. I think for me, that's, working on media relations, working with issues and issues management is something that draws me the most to the overall communications work I've done.
And what would be your best advice to someone interested in entering the world of media relations and strategic communications with any company?
My best advice, I would, I'd have to say, be very open to learning. Be open to work opportunities earlier in your career that give you a view of how things work on a broad scale. Sometimes, working for an agency is a great option, but you work a lot of hours, and so the model is changing, right? But at the same time, working in-house, you're just one of many employees, and sometimes communications doesn't have the same value as you think it should. Overall, I think for people looking to work in PR and in communications, look for people that are willing and open to mentor you. Like the IBC and CPRS have great mentoring programs for junior communicators. Definitely network at events, get to know other communicators, because like basically you're all on. It's a pretty big community of communicators, not just here in Toronto, but across the country. And there's always opportunities to grow. Most people don't enter their first job and magically master everything. But what you appreciate over a number of years of doing what you do in a communications world is that everything has a progress, everything has a growth to it. And the lessons that you make when you're younger in your career, you sort of laugh at when you're a bit older, but it doesn't mean that you ever stop learning. So I think that that's part of some of the advice I've given young communicators.
Well, thank you so much, Fabrice, for letting us a little bit of your time and teaching us more about media relations and strategic communication. Something that you would like to add to this interview? I don't know.
Absolutely. So when you first approached me, I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I'm not one to typically do this type of thing. So I really welcome it. And I thank you for asking me to do this. I think that, communications is a great career. It's not an easy career. In fact, I think people who do PR are probably on the list of most, top 10 stressful jobs in the planet. They always somehow make it up there. But it's very rewarding. And if you can find an opportunity to do something new every day and challenge you and be creative and learn about different companies and industries that you otherwise would never have exposure to. And I would say that, the beauty of communications is that it's one of the very few departments in any company that typically gets to work with all of the other departments. It'll work with finance, it'll work with HR, it'll work with the business lines, it has a great reach across the organization because it's essentially the mouthpiece of the organization, either internally but also externally. So it's a really valuable career. So I'm glad I made it.
Everything we do here works because of you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our social media networks. Click the link in the description below this video. And please join us to do your own virtual coffee chat, as I did today. I hope you enjoyed our discussion and learned a lot about media relations and strategic communications.